Good morning, friends. You ready to start our day? The sun is shining. Good morning, and we're all smiling. Good morning to everyone. Hooray, hooray! Have a good day. Great. How about some twinkle, twinkle? Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Great work, my friends. All right, we're gonna get right into it today because I have a lot of information I wanted to cover with you guys. So we've been talking about recycling. We've been talking about what happens when things go to the landfill in the trash. We talked yesterday about what happens when things go to the recycling center, right? How they get recycled. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the impact that recycling has, because it's really big. And it's a lot of information. So I've made a couple of pictures as kind of a visual for some of it, because some of it can be hard to imagine in your head. So I have some notes and I wanted to talk to you guys about the huge difference that recycling can make. So landfills, where the trash goes, are the biggest contributor to pollution of dirt, to pollution of the soil. Even though they try and protect the soil by putting a plastic liner like we did with our garbage bag on our little mini landfill, it still kind of seeps out into the surrounding dirt, which can be really bad for the environment. So one of the pictures I have shows, so 75% of the waste that we create is recyclable. 75%, that's most of the waste that people make is recyclable. But only 30% is actually recycled in the US. So only 30% of the waste we make is being recycled here. That's a big difference, right? We could be doing a lot more. We could be recycling a lot more. Let's see. Recycling in general uses way less natural resources. So let's say to make a new aluminum can uses oil, it uses water, it uses all these natural resources to make the new can, whereas it would take way less than that to just recycle aluminum cans. And same with paper. It would take so much more energy and natural resources and trees to make new paper than to just recycle paper that was used before. You guys know that paper comes from trees, right? So one of the things that I read that was like a really wow moment for me is that each individual person in the US, so you as a person, will use about 2 trees worth of paper a year. Isn't that amazing? It's a lot. And we could be cutting down on that so much. So another thing was when you recycle plastic bottles, they can be chopped up and processed and used to make almost like a material kind of thing that they use to fill warm jackets, right? The puffy jackets are sometimes filled with something called polyfill, and it takes only 5 recycled water bottles, 5 water bottles to fill one jacket. It's not a lot. So for every 5 water bottles you recycle, you could make an entire jacket. It's pretty cool. Recycled clothing while we're talking about jackets, is another big thing that we could be recycling that a lot of people aren't. When people want to get rid of clothes, they sometimes just toss them in the trash. When we could be handing them down, we could be mending them, like sewing them and fixing them up. So much clothing ends up in the landfill because it just doesn't get used. When stores have extra that they don't sell, it just goes to the landfill. So we have to be really intentional about what we do with the things that we wear too. So I thought we'd talk just a tiny bit about, you know, each thing that we can recycle and the impact that it can have. So for plastics, something like this, or a bottle, it can take 500 years to decompose. 500 years to decompose. That is a huge amount of time. So the US throws away 2.5 million water bottles per hour. That is such a huge number. The amount of plastic that we're putting in the landfill as opposed to something that could be recycled is huge. And we talked about this a little bit earlier this year, but Plastic Island, a lot of our plastic is ending up in the ocean with the fish and the birds. It's made its own island. So this is not only bad for the environment, but it's bad for the animals that live in the environment, right? They're eating it, they're getting stuck in it. So the less plastic waste we make, the more we recycle, the less this will happen. All right, glass. Glass takes slightly less time to decompose. Glass is 400 years to decompose. And glass is infinitely recyclable, which means you can recycle it over and over and over and over and over and over forever. And it never loses the quality. So with plastics, sometimes you can, or especially with paper, you can only recycle it a couple of times before it has to get used for something that's maybe not paper anymore. But glass, you can use over and over and over and over and over, which is awesome. The same thing is true of aluminum cans. Something like this. Infinitely recyclable. Can be recycled so many times. And it is the most recycled item in the US. People are actually recycling cans, which is great. That's really good news. So, recycling 2 aluminum cans, saves enough energy to power a computer for an entire day. Isn't that awesome? You're saving energy when you recycle. So, 20 new recycled cans uses the same energy as creating 1 new one, what I mentioned in the beginning. So, you can make 20 recycled cans, like into new cans, with the amount of energy it would take to make 1 new can. It's a lot. So paper, we think of the scrap paper that we use that we draw on, but paper also includes things like greeting cards and wrapping paper and junk mail, right? And all of that contributes to paper waste, which could also be recycled. So the amount of paper that is thrown out in the US could build a 12-foot wall from LA to New York City. I drew that out because I know it's hard to visualize. To imagine this is our country. We're sort of over here. New York City's close to us. So if we made a 12-foot wall from New York City to Los Angeles, that is the amount of paper we're throwing away a year. a lot. So, recycling paper leaves more trees, right? More trees to absorb carbon dioxide, to combat pollution. We want those trees to exist. We want them to grow. We don't want to keep cutting down trees to make new paper, right? And we could just be recycling it. Recycling is so important to save energy and to reduce the amount of waste that we are putting into our environment. So what are some little things that we could do besides just making sure that we put our recyclables into the recycling bin? What are some other ways that we can reuse and recycle? We talked really briefly about reusing clothes, handing them down. I don't know if you guys have been to the Nesting House in Philadelphia. It's a fantastic store, but it's a lot of resale clothes, resale toys, things like that, things that people have used that are still good enough to be used again by other people. I get a lot of our stuff from there, and it's great. The Second Mile is another great spot for finding clothes that are still good, still usable, and you don't have to buy new clothes, you know? Some other things would be to, seems like a really simple one, but to use both sides of the paper. When you're drawing, when you're writing, use both sides. Spend some time on a drawing and really fill up the page rather than just doing a couple lines of scribbling and calling it done and getting another piece. Really focus and work on filling up a page and use both sides of it, right? Even just being intentional with the things that we have, like paint and crayons and markers, and not letting them get dried out, using them only when we want to use them, not just, you know, opening it and spilling it everywhere like my kids do sometimes. You know, being intentional with how we use things means we're wasting less of it. So they're just some little ideas, and we're gonna keep adding to that as we go along. But I know it's a lot of information. I'm gonna include in the email to your parents the source that I got this information from, so you can look at it again and reference back to it if you want. But that's that for today. And we're gonna read a story. Little Blue Truck. And frame, there we go. Horn went beep, engine purred, friendliest sounds you ever heard. Little Blue Truck came down the road. Beep, said Blue to a big green toad. Toad said croak and winked an eye when Little Blue Truck went rolling by. Sheep said baa, cow said moo, oink, said a piggy, beep, said Blue. Skip a page. Cluck, said a chicken, and her chick said peep. Ma, said a goat, Blue said beep. Neigh, said a horse, quack, said a duck, beep, said the friendly Little Blue Truck. Honk, yelled a dump truck, coming through. I've big important things to do. I haven't got time to pass the day with every duck along the way. Vroom, went the dump around a curve. He saw a puddle and he tried to swerve. Into the mud rolled the big fat truck, and his big important wheels got stuck. His heavy-duty dump truck tires were sunk down deep in muck and mire. Honk, cried the dump, and he sounded scared, but nobody heard or nobody cared. Then, into the mud, bump, 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 came the Little Blue Truck to help the dump. Little Blue pushed with all his might. Now Blue and the dump were both stuck tight. Help, cried the Little Blue Truck. Beep, 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 I'm stuck, I'm stuck. Everybody heard that beep, beep, beep. The cow came running with the pig and the sheep. Up at a gallop ran the big brown horse. Goat jumped over the fence, of course. The hen came flapping with the chick and the duck, and everybody pushed the Little Blue Truck. Head to head and rump to rump, they all pushed Blue, who pushed the dump. They couldn't quite budge that heavy load. Then who hopped up but the big green toad? All together, 1, 2, 3, one last push, and the trucks were free. Thanks, little brother, said the dump to Blue. You helped me and they helped you. Now I see a lot depends on a helping hand from a few good friends. Beep, said Blue. Who wants a ride? Everybody scrambled to jump inside. Oink, quack, ba, moo, cluck, peep, neigh, cruck, ma. Beep, beep, beep. All right, friends, I'll see you back in a little bit for more of our chapter book.